I've been to places you can't imagine, faced things you wouldn't believe, and lived to tell the tale. But don't get too comfortable. These stories aren't just for entertainment. They're warnings. Stay too long in the dark, and you might find it staring back at you. So, let's begin, shall we? Brace yourselves for a night of horrors you won't forget. There's a place I'll never go back to. A bed and breakfast tucked away in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place that doesn't have an address, just a name. I was driving, lost and desperate for a place to stay when I pulled in. The innkeeper was an old man, his face shrouded in wrinkles and mystery. He didn't ask for my name, just handed me a key to room 17 and said in a voice that still echoes in my head, "Don't go into that room after midnight." Of course, I didn't listen. At 12:15 a.m., I found myself standing in front of the door. It creaked open, releasing a cold, musty air that hit me like a wall. Inside, everything seemed fine at first. Too fine. Perfectly arranged furniture, a flickering candle, and the faint smell of something. Almost sweet. But then, I saw it. There was a chair in the center of the room, facing the window. And in that chair, a figure sat perfectly still. Its back was to me, its head bent forward, like it was waiting for something. For me. I spoke, but the room swallowed my words. "Hello?" I whispered. Silence. I took a step closer, my heart pounding. As I reached out to touch its shoulder, the figure jerked its head toward me. It wasn't human. The face was covered in dark, tattered cloth, and its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were black, empty voids. I tried to scream, but my mouth was dry, and my breath froze in the air. The figure leaned forward, and I could feel it in my chest, pressing against my ribs. It whispered. No, it didn't speak. It echoed. It was inside me now, and all I could hear were those words. Words I couldn't understand, but felt with every fiber of my being. When I blinked, it was gone, and I've never gone back to that place again. I was never one to buy into the whole haunted object thing. That was until I bought that dollhouse. It was an antique, a small wooden structure with delicate carvings, found at a yard sale out of nowhere. The seller was an old woman who looked at me strangely when I picked it up, almost like she knew something I didn't. She didn't say much except, "Be careful with it. It doesn't like to be moved." I didn't pay much attention to her. But when I got it home, something changed. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. Tiny creaks in the night, doors that moved ever so slightly on their own. But then, things started to escalate. I woke one night to a soft rustling sound. Thinking it was just the house settling, I went to check, and there, on the shelf, was the dollhouse. And something wasn't right. The tiny dolls inside weren't where they were supposed to be. In fact, one of them had moved. And it wasn't just any doll. It was a little girl with glassy eyes, now positioned with her back to the house's window, facing me. I should have thrown it away right then, but I didn't. Curiosity gripped me, and that's where I made my mistake. Over the next few days, I found that the dolls would rearrange themselves when I wasn't looking. Sometimes, they'd even seem to whisper to each other. The worst part? They would watch me. I could feel their eyes following me, no matter where I went in the room. One night, I woke up to the sound of tiny footsteps tapping on the floor, like someone was walking in the dark. I didn't dare look, but the footsteps stopped right next to my bed. I didn't need to look to know. One of them was standing at my side, staring at me. I tried to burn the dollhouse, but it wouldn't burn. The flames wouldn't touch it. Instead, the dolls screamed. So I buried it in the woods, far from my house. But I know it didn't end. really, because the whispers haven't stopped. They're still calling to me. When I was a kid, my parents had this old house, one of those Victorian monstrosities that always seemed to groan and whisper in the middle of the night. It had a basement. And for reasons I never fully understood, no one in the family ever went down there. It wasn't locked. There wasn't anything wrong with it, at least not in the way you'd expect. But there was something there, something my parents would never talk about. One summer evening, I was bored, as kids often are, and decided to investigate. I wasn't afraid, not yet, but the moment I opened the basement door, the air felt wrong. A coldness that wasn't natural, like the basement was somehow keeping the world outside. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended. At first, I didn't see anything, just old furniture, dust, and broken boxes. But then, I saw it. A shadow. It wasn't a shadow from anything. I know that much. It just was. Tall, featureless, and waiting in the corner, just beyond the light. I turned to leave, but my feet wouldn't move. My legs felt like lead. That's when I heard it. A scraping sound, like fingernails against wood. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. The shadow stepped forward, its form becoming more defined. Long arms, twisted fingers, and eyes that glowed, reflecting the dim light of the basement. I don't remember how I got out, but I do remember the feeling that something was chasing me. I haven't set foot in that basement since, and every time I close my eyes, I can still hear those scraping nails. It started with the mirror. It was a gift from my grandmother, an old, ornate frame that gleamed even in the darkest rooms. She always told me it was special, that it had been in our family for generations, but I never understood why. Not until that night. I had been staying in my apartment for a few months when I noticed something strange. One evening, I looked into the mirror to adjust my tie. And for just a moment, I saw someone else. Not me, someone else. A face, pale and gaunt, with eyes too wide to be human. The figure was staring at me from the glass, grinning. I blinked. Gone. I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe fatigue. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard a soft tapping, like fingernails on glass. I tried to ignore it, but the tapping grew louder, more insistent. The next time I looked into the mirror, I saw the face again. This time, it wasn't just a fleeting image. It was there, behind me, in the reflection, its mouth moving, but no words came out. I felt my skin crawl. My heart raced. The figure whispered something I couldn't hear, but I felt it, like an itch in the back of my mind. It wanted me, and the worst part, it had been there the entire time, waiting. I don't know how to explain it, but after that night, I saw the face every time I looked into the mirror. Not only did it smile, but it started to mimic me. Every move, every blink, until I wasn't sure where I ended, and it began. I tried to destroy the mirror. I threw it out the window, shattered it on the pavement. But the next morning, it was whole again, and the figure was smiling. I grew up near a forest known as the Whispering Woods. It wasn't a special forest, not in the way that makes it famous, but the locals, they knew. They never spoke about it openly, but if you listened closely, you could hear the warnings in the way they talked. They said the woods had a voice, that if you listened long enough, it would start calling you. Of course, I didn't believe it. Not until I found myself deep inside those woods one summer afternoon with a few friends. We didn't think anything of it. It was just a hike, a simple way to pass the time. As the trees grew thicker, the light dimmed, and the air became heavy. We heard it then. The whispers. It was so soft at first, like a breeze, but it didn't feel natural. The voices weren't the wind. They were watching. I thought it was just my imagination until I heard my name clearly in the silence. John, it called, like it had been waiting for me. My friends didn't hear it, of course, but I felt it in my chest, in my gut. And then, one by one, the names of my friends. The whispers knew us. They knew things no one should. We tried to leave, but the woods didn't let us. The trees began to shift, twisting and turning, blocking our path. And then, I saw it. One of my friends was gone, completely vanished, just like that. The whispers grew louder, the trees closed in, and the last thing I heard was their laughter. The trees, the wind, everything laughing as we ran. This one, I can never forget. It wasn't the first time something watched me, but it was the most persistent. It started small, just a figure standing outside my window, too far to make out. At first I thought it was a neighbor, someone I didn't recognize. But then, the figure never moved. It was always there, always watching. I tried to ignore it, but after a while I couldn't. I couldn't stop looking. It was like it was waiting for something, waiting for me. One night, I opened the window to confront it, to see who this person was. But when I looked out, the figure didn't move. It just stood there, waiting. And then, it stepped forward, its face too distorted to be real. Its features were blurred, stretched out. It spoke, but not in any language I understood. The voice was garbled, distorted, like it came from deep underwater. It said only one thing. I've been waiting for you. I don't know what it wanted, but I know it still watches me. Every night, from just beyond the edge of my window, it waits, and I wonder how long until I make the mistake of looking away. And that's where our tales come to rest, for now. But be warned, these stories have a way of lingering long after the words fade. They whisper to you when you least expect it, creeping into the quiet moments, hiding in the corners of your mind. These stories don't end when the fire goes out. They follow you, just beyond the edge of your vision. So, next time you're alone in the dark, remember, the most terrifying things don't always make a sound. Until we meet again, keep the light close and never let the silence fool you.